Welcome to the Marvel Cinematic University podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Canton III, and this is a Road to Doomsday edition of the program as we are diving into the character of Doctor Strange and a lot of the multiverse mechanics, which it's a very interesting thing to revisit as we get there. No Jake Christie this evening as he is off world. We'll basically say he's in the multiverse of podcasting at the moment. So if anything, what's not in the multiverse is patreon.com/mcuniversitypod. We could get our bonus content. We do the subscriber mailbag every month. It's a new month. It's one of our favorite things that we do. We have the Fantastic Four movies that we will be revisiting this month and into July as we get ready for Fantastic Four First Steps. Looking forward to that, and appreciate everybody for listening and supporting on that front. $3 to get in for not only getting the Discord but our backlog of every single bonus episode we've ever done. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And with that being said, let me introduce you to my guest, my pal, my friend. We leave the key under the mat for him, and he comes every time. Our guy, Rod Morrow, a.k.a. the black guy who tips. Rod, how you doing, sir?
Hey, what's going on, man? It's good to see you. Good to be here and chop up with some nerdy stuff with you.
Wonderful, wonderful. We do have another guest joining us, and he should be here in a moment. But until then, Rod, I want to ask you this question. So, in terms of the things that we talk about with Doctor Strange is a pretty huge character in the MCU, and he was not one of the people announced in the Doomsday initial announcement. Now, we've spent plenty of time on this show being critical of the multiverse saga and everything that goes on with it. However, one thing that we have not done to the degree that maybe we should is actually analyze the mechanics and everything that's going on with the multiverse, especially if we look back at Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness, which is a very fun movie, very enjoyable movie. So I'll just ask you this first. What did you think from a character standpoint that we saw from Doctor Strange in that movie as far as his story was concerned?
I mean, it's kind of interesting because I think Stephen Strange has always felt more like an anti-hero than a hero to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's not really a put on a cape and save the day type of dude. So it was good to see like his arc of learning to accept his role as like this protector and this sorcerer supreme of the like of this of and guardian of America Chavez and all that stuff. So like seeing him take on that role was dope and it was growth for that character. Um, but I can't bring that up without tying it into Spider-Man because I felt
Right.
like he did the similar thing with Peter Parker, where it almost felt like he was Tony Stark in it a bit, like, hey, let me come help this young man and try to save the day. The difference being that Doctor Strange's kind of a dick, so you end up like having a fight with him because that's his way of protecting you or
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, so I think he's in a position now where if you were to show me in this next phase of Marvel, he's heavily involved in protecting the universes, or if they decide to go the incursion route, he's like right there at the table trying to figure out like who gets to live and who doesn't, playing God, playing Doctor to the multiverse. I could see that with this character, and I do find it surprising that he's not listed in the Doomsday casting yet. But I even with them naming 57 people, I can't be sure that's the only people in those movies.
Yeah, 100% to be sure. We do have another guest joining us. Our pal Dalvin Osorio is here. Dalvin, how you doing, sir?
Doing good, man. Thank you, AC, for your patience as I ran around getting balloons for my daughter who's graduating first grade tomorrow.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
So thank you. Yeah, and I had to wait for her to go to bed so I could run to the 99-cent store to get the balloons, right, and like all that stuff.
I know
But
the
we're here.
balancing issue is not easy. That's for sure.
Yes, but we're here, and I couldn't miss an opportunity to ride on the MCU's Carrie Bradshaw that is Stephen Strange. I couldn't miss that, so I'm happy to be back with you guys.
That's great.
This
So
is now with you two guys. This is the multiverse of dadness.
That's
yeah,
it.
yeah, two very different households in terms of Obviously, Dalbin has a daughter and a son, and I have a two-man wrecking crew at home. So it's a little different there. Dalbin, I wanted to ask you. Rod did a good job of kind of listing and talking about Doctor Strange's character arc. I wanted to ask you this question because the what ended up happening at the end of Multiverse of Madness with Doctor Strange eventually getting arguably corrupted by the Book of Ashanti
Yep.
as his third eye opened, and and he went with Clea to the dark dimension to do God knows what. What do you think overall about his character in connection to what Doomsday could be because of this simple aspect of we remember the Illuminati in the conversation that they had with Strange, saying that uh, Reed Richards, Krasinski's Reed Richards, saying that Strange was the biggest threat to the multiverse, and
Yeah.
him causing incursions was a thing.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Strange? It's pretty clear that you do have some particular thoughts that you want to get off about Strange. So in conjunction with that, let me know what you're feeling as far as that's concerned with my question.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a great question. So it's funny because I have thoroughly enjoyed Doctor Strange's arc in the MCU. I think that Benedict Cumberbatch has crushed it. And I think he, unlike some other characters, has gotten a chance to show the same sides of his assholeness, as Rod pointed out. Like he is a dick,
Mm,
and so as it pertains to Doomsday, though, I think and I'm very interested to see him as the other side of this coin to Doctor Doom in a lot of ways. Where had they stuck with Kang, I think that's who he would have been. He would have been the right foil because
yeah.
exactly what you said, Mister Fantastic said. You're the biggest threat to the multiverse. It is you, right? And I remember watching that, and I loved Multiverse of Madness. I thought it was one of the more fun Marvel movies. What I thought at that point was I was like, well, that makes sense because he is the one that continues to try to make things right
Yeah.
no matter what happens, right? Very similar to Iron Man, right? Like suit around the armor around the world. When Wanda shows them their nightmares in Age of Ultron, she even says that. She's like, he wants to make everything right. Who do you think he gets that from? And that's Strange. Strange is that. So to Rod's point, he's that to the point that he would, help Spider-Man without a second thought in the world. He wants to protect America Chavez without a second thought in the world.
Yeah.
And so now I wonder who's the next baby he's going to try to protect in order to save everything, right? In Doomsday. And is his role, is he going to be that of a caretaker for Franklin Richards, right? Like, does he play that role in Doomsday? Because there's something to be said for how he's been positioned as this caregiver,
Hmm.
that almost goes against everything we saw from the first Doctor Strange, where he was self-centered, very much like into himself, only cared about himself. And now we've seen him try to sacrifice all that he knows to help these younger heroes, right? And so I wonder his connection to Franklin Richards, him as a foil to Doctor Doom. I think there's something special there. And I love Rod. I love AC that you mentioned the Illuminati, because is that his end goal? Does he say, you know what? The way for me to do this is to start our Illuminati, the
Hmm.
616 Illuminati with their heroes. I think Strange's arc is the one that I'm really interested to see, because I think he has so much more growth to show.
Yeah.
And whereas like some of the heroes like Thor, I don't think I need like one more Thor movie, because I think like you've kind of exhausted that well, so to speak. But Strange has some more meat on the bone, dude. Like he's got some more stories to tell and some more growth to show.
So, in mentioning the idea of Doctor Strange in the What If episode and the fact that I don't even want to say necessarily an obsession with Christine, but I think the argument can be made that it's an obsession with Christine, that it leads to him destroying his entire world. I think it's something that you could connect in conjunction with the character in Multiverse of Madness, in the sense that he always needs to make things right, to your point, Dalbean. And that's where, how does that come into play with what Doctor Doom wants? Because this, now we can expand this a little further in the discussion in terms of, oh, hey, we have the incursions portion of things that we've only seen a couple of times. We saw it in we saw them talk about it in the Multiverse of Madness movie, and then also we saw what was something similar in the Marvels with what ended up happening to Monica Rambeau. and her getting trapped in another world. So I'll ask both of you this, and Rod, you could go first, in the sense that this strange character, in connection to kind of what Doctor Doom is trying to do, because what Doctor Doom is trying to do ultimately is he's trying to get to Loki. That's going to be the general story of all of this, and I guess he's going to fight everybody on his way to get there. If Strange is involved in this, it seems like he presents not only a problem for Doom, but potentially a problem for everybody just generally.
Mm. Yeah, I think ironically, Strange's real superpower is that he's willing to pay the cost of everything. Like if you look at it, he's kind of like 3 for 3 in that way. Obviously, Dormammu, he defeated a god because his will was unbreakable over that of a god. In Infinity War, he's like, we all do need to disappear and get zapped, and it's the only way out of this thing. So he's willing to pay that, even destroying his entire reality for Christine. He's willing to lose everything and turn into a monster, absorbing all those monsters. So like that's his superpower. But I don't know how big a role he would have in this phase with Doctor Doom, because
Yeah,
I could also see a scenario where you like Doom beats him at his own game, and that
right.
just raises the stakes for everybody. And like, yo, this dude is a dog. He got Strange up out of here real fast, and what are we gonna do? Um, and I would like to see him versus Doom, just to see the battle of the wills and all that stuff. Um, but yeah, I don't know that. I'm very interested to just see where they go, because I don't know 100% how they're going to do this incursion thing. How they're
Yeah,
gonna, I do figure they're gonna definitely do something, obviously, to get the Fantastic Four, and like, will the X-Men kind of enter into this in any way? Because they can say we won't make an X-Men movie for a while, but I saw the end of the Marvels, and you kind of already are making
yeah,
X-Men movies. So like I don't know what they're doing. And then with them pushing it back, I feel like the Russos are really good at this adjusting on the fly thing, right? Like we get all, now that we all know like the ins and the outs of the Marvel universe behind the scenes that we weren't privy to at the time. We know how much of this process is actually, you know, improvisation and
yeah,
adjusting things as they come. And so I would be interested to see how much they want to involve Strange in this next phase, because like I said, I don't that cast list means nothing to me almost. Like it's just a list of people that we know have roles in Marvel for the most part. But
yeah.
like people are trying to make a plot out of that list. Man, dog, they could have the old X-Men in there for 4 seconds for all we know. Like we might
Word.
see them looking up at Galactus eating a planet or some shit. We truly do not know. So I just want to see what ideas they have for him.
Yes, and Dalvin, in your opinion, because I think Rob makes a great point with the cast list, because
Yeah.
we're not including the Young Avengers, aka champions,
Right.
who are very much a big part of this thing in one way or another. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Rod. I think the cast list is just a bunch of suggestions at this point. I don't think it matters so much, because I do think like such a long delay. I love what Rod said about this idea of Marvel being improvisation. Improvisation that goes back to the first Iron Man. You know, like remember they didn't have a script finalized or anything like that. Downey was just
Mhm.
figuring it out as they went along. I also think that Disney having only one Marvel property, I don't think that's going to stay like that either. And so I think that's where you kind of see more, maybe more Stephen Strange. I think that's where Strange probably fits in. Like, do you do Doctor Strange 3 now in one of those vacated slots to try to get
mhm,
Mhm.
Strange to play a more integral role than he's played so far in this phase? Because before this happened, before the delay, I thought you could have had him completely off the board. To Rod's point, you didn't even have to have him
yeah,
in Doomsday. He could have been in the dark dimension with the love of his life, Clea, shutting shit down there, right? But now I think you have an opportunity to tell that story and bring him back to then, I think, to Rod's point, imagine if you start Doomsday with Downey's Doom ripping Strange's skeleton out or something like that.
Mm.
Like, so you take
mhm,
that panel from the comics to drive home the point that, like, he's the one that took away the guy that was willing to sacrifice anybody. He's now taking him off the board. You're gonna have to be more ruthless than that guy in order to beat me, right? And I think it presents
Yeah.
a different. I think it presents a different idea. I think too the the end of the Marvels, the end of the Marvels, to Rod's point, might as well just be X-Men point five, and then and then you
Yeah.
go into that. I think that I think Marvel realizes by going back to the Russos, by going back to Downey, by starting these breadcrumbs of X-Men, they realize that like this is the stuff that's going to make them the most money going forward, also, right? And so I think they're going to bank on guys like Strange, who again, even if you didn't like Multiverse of Madness, it made a shit ton of money, made a shit ton of money,
They
right?
sure did.
And it's
Yeah.
probably right. And so they're gonna bank on their big money makers. If Chadwick was still alive, we'd probably get Black Panther 3 in one of those slots, because I
Yeah.
think they're gonna go with the movies that they know are gonna bring them in cash, hand over fist, right? But Strange, you have to drive home that Strange is the only one with the wits to match Doctor Doom, and then you also have to simultaneously drive home that Doom is going to kill him, that Doom is going to
Right.
wreck him in order to drive home the threat. So I mean, I think that's the part that you want to see them figure out. And I think everybody that was listed on the cast list is just suggestions at this point. Some of these folks may not even make it to whatever the next phase is, the mutant saga, etc.
Right. I mean, my assumption is, I know Rod said this on a previous episode, is that them older X-Men, I feel like a lot of those are going to get wiped out
Yeah.
relatively quickly, if I had to guess, and make way for a lot of the newbies there. That's one way you can go about it. I think the thing that I would want to delve into a little further is like the actual mechanics of the multiverse and what worked, and what actually makes sense because of the way that we've seen in Doctor Strange, and obviously America Chavez playing such a huge role in her ability to kind of be able to punch her way into different worlds. That's that's kind of a pretty useful way to go about things. And
And AC,
yeah,
and the fact that she's the only one that doesn't have a variant. There is no other
right.
universe that you're finding her, right? And so to your point, like as you said at the beginning about Loki being the thing we need to get in this movie, she very easily could play the role of how to get to him because she's the only one of her that exists. And does Strange sacrifice her in order to protect the multiverse, or is this where we find out that even Strange has a limit? Which I think is interesting for his character arc as well.
Or is Doom looking for people to use who have those types of abilities, similar to not only Chavez, but even to a lesser degree whenever we get the revival of Wanda. Wanda's another one who was able to dream walk through worlds, and that's what we saw what we saw her wipe out the Illuminati, and one of my favorite action scenes in MCU history. Um, that was pretty cool. But her abilities in being able to do that is something that Doctor Doom could use to his advantage if he wants to. So that's an interesting avenue to get to. But I think in terms of, because Secret Wars, the 2015 one, um, focuses heavily on incursions and the idea of worlds dying and stuff like that. Dalvin, I know this is your bag, and this is something that you're really great at in terms of just like the idea of comics and some of the most influential storylines. And obviously, Secret Wars in 2015, Hickman's Secret Wars, which relied on the incursions as opposed to the one in the 80s, which was more of the battle world situation, which I think the MCU is trying to do a combination of both of those things. Um, in terms of what we might see with worlds dying and things along those lines, what are you most intrigued to see, and what would you like to see if it were you in the chair? From the-
I love this question. I love this question because I think so. I'm I think that seeing what an incursion looks like from like on the ground, and this movie didn't do a lot right, but Batman versus Superman, one of the things they did do well was showing the destruction of Gotham from the ground, right? Like so Bruce is like trying to help people and like all that, as you're seeing, Zod and Superman just fight through or whatever, right? In Metropolis. I thought that made I was like, you know what? I was like, if nothing else, Zack Snyder can do spectacle on that scale. I think if you want to drive home what an incursion looks like, you show the Fantastic Four's Earth going up in flames like that. So I think that's one. I think you want to make sure that you can drive home the stakes of this, because I don't think people understand just how bad an incursion can be. All we've seen is the Inception style buildings in that Earth that Steven visited, right? That's all we've seen. We haven't seen a Earth blow up, right? So I think that's one. I think when you're talking about the 2015, right, you're talking about one of the things that I think Hickman did really well, and he did it differently than what I think the Russos tried to do in Endgame with the time travel. I think
Mhm.
I think when you look at these characters, it's exactly what Rod said. Who is willing to go to these absolute absurd lengths to protect who they love?
Mhm.
Reed, in a lot of ways, right? Because he for the longest time, Reed Richards was the smartest man in the world, smartest dude in all the universe. And then I think he runs into a guy who realizes that it's not about the brains, it's about what are you willing to lose in order to do this, right?
Yeah.
And so I think these character moments where you see Pascal's Reed arguing with Downey's Doom about what it means to really like why are we doing what we are doing, right? Why is Reed on this side of the conflict, and why is Doom on this side of the conflict? I think that's big. I think you want to drive home exactly what an incursion looks like. I think you also want to drive home the fact that some of these dudes, some of these heroes are gonna align with Doctor Doom. They are gonna look at him and they're gonna say, you know what? That brother has a point. There's
Mhm.
something right here. And the reason being that you're talking about where we are in the MCU right now. We have a Shuri who's lost her brother and couldn't save him, right?
Mhm.
So we have a Shuri who's experienced that kind of loss. We have a Namor who sees Reed standing in the way of his one true love in Sue Storm and being
Oh
able
my
to get to the
gosh,
woman he
that's
loves,
right. What
right?
this is about to start.
Right? So again, when we talk about sacrificing to get what you want, a lot
Yeah.
of these people are going to want something different, and Doom's going to be their avenue to get it. If it was me, if I was in the chair, I'd make them all lose. Doom would be the guy that ends up at the end, like really like hovering over this universe, because I think you don't get the chance to build him up because Marvel hit the emergency break glass by bringing Downey back. But there is something to be said for the person that has lost arguably the most in the comics in Doctor Doom, right? Physical scarring, lost the woman he loves to read, didn't get a chance to save his people in Latvia, right? In Latveria, right? He didn't get to
Right.
save his people. He has lost more than a lot of the other folks in the Marvel comics. You're not going to get a chance to build that up in Fantastic Four and Doomsday, unfortunately, just because you're not going to have time. But I would have centered him in multiple projects before we got here to show exactly why he's willing to sacrifice all these heroes that we have grown to love over the last decades, right? Over the last 20 years or so, who some of them are going to be like, yeah, that man is right. Like Cyclops, I could see Cyclops siding with Doom, right? We're talking about a Cyclops
Oh
who,
goodness.
right? Like we're talking about a Cyclops who you have to remember if we're looking at the X-Men post Days of Future Past, it's a Cyclops that has had to deal with Jean becoming the Phoenix, coming back. They fixed that timeline, right? So he's
Right.
come close to losing the love of his life. You have a Gambit who was thrust into the void. Maybe he sees some truth to Doom and what he's doing. There is a really
I
good
love that
chance.
idea.
Yeah, man. There's just a really good chance for them to take these heroes who we've seen one way, be
I
like,
love
yeah,
that idea.
Doom has it right. You know what I mean? Like like think about Magneto. Magneto lived through the Holocaust. Lived through the Holocaust. You think he's not gonna buy what Doctor Doom is selling? Doctor Doom's like, listen, we need to get rid of all these people, dump them all in the void. Let them fight against. I think Magneto sees that and thinks like, he's got a point.
Oh
He's got a
god.
point.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, I think there's so much chance for that, man, because Hickman's run. Like I think that was the cool thing about Hickman's run, because remember Secret Wars,
Right.
it was like 5 different editions, six different comics within that run, and you got to see Spider-Man was like, yeah, I don't really want anything to do with this. Like I'm not like, this ain't got nothing to do with me. And so I think the human reaction to a man who wants to eradicate this universe, I
Hmm.
think that's what I want to see, because I think some people are going to be like, yeah, he's got a point.
That was so well laid out, and what I love about that in specifics, and my pal Rod is here with me, so I'd love to talk about this. Just imagine a scene where Doctor Doom is pontificating about his plan and his entire idea of what he should do and all that stuff. And one of his acolytes is Channing Tatum's Gambit. Oh my god, it writes itself. It just writes itself.
I don't
Doom,
know.
Doom
I don't know
asking
if
him,
I'm ready.
Doom asking him, "Are you ready?" And Channing Tatum telling Robert Downey Jr., Oscar winner Robert Downey Jr.,
Oh,
"I busted out of my daddy's nuts ready." Like, think
oh,
about that. You can't make this up, AC. Like, it is set up for us to get everything we've always
you
wanted
just
in
opened
these
up the
moments.
door to something incredible.
They
I,
better.
I,
They better not. They better not.
I
They're on thin ice with this whole multiverse thing. They gotta nail it. If at any point Channing Tatum goes Deadpool Gambit in this thing, I don't know. I don't know if the Marvel. I don't know if they can come back from that. If you talk
Oh
about,
my
if you talk
god.
about,
Hold on, Rod. Hold on, because I got to ask you now.
mm,
Channing Tatum's Gambit
mm.
and Terrence Howard's Rhodey in a scene. Isn't this what the multiverse exists for?
It's what I would
Guys.
want. It's what I would want. But the only way that can happen is if immediately their Earth is destroyed, as like we see them and they just destroy, just everything turns white and we go, oh man, they're getting rid of people.
no, no next time maybe for that one.
Yeah, nah. I do want to see like
Yes.
if they go that route. The other thing they can do too is just alternate versions of these guys from different universes, which is what they did a lot in Secret Wars, where like, you know, just Black Panther with one degree away from the Black Panther we know, you know, like
Right.
it's Doctor Strange, because you know the thing we never talk about with Doctor Strange, we have the only good one.
Right.
Like,
The rest
like
of them,
every other
are some
Strange
devious.
is fucked. Like
Yeah.
they're either dead or they're like, because they weren't good enough at being a sorcerer, or they're fucking evil and they just fucked up their universe. Like we get one guy who we only kind of like it's like it's not even like our guy is like, we're like, yo, Stephen Strange, hero to the, we're like, and Steve, he got his ways about him, but he'll come through in the end, right? So I would love to see, because I think what I like the most about Hickman's run at that time with the whole Illuminati Secret Wars thing was how the real statement he made was sitting at the table to decide already compromises you as a hero. You can't, there are no heroes at the table. And the only guys who end up being heroes were people that literally got up and walked away. Like, I think Steve Rogers cussed their ass out and walked away, and I was just like, yeah, that's kind of the only right choice if you're going to be a hero, because if not, you're dooming billions of people, if not more, to just die and you're going to do it again so often. So seeing how far they go with the multiverse thing will be interesting. I do want to bring up this point though.
Yeah, sure.
I do wonder if the general audience at this point feels like the multiverse, like fatigue, like the idea of like, this is going to heavily center on a multiverse idea, even if at the end it gets us down to one streamlined timeline. I wonder how many people are like, I don't want to go through the ride that it takes to get back there, because you don't have Kang anymore. They're obviously doing some multiversal shit with this Fantastic Four with the ending of New Avengers, aka Thunderbolts. So like, I wonder how much the audience is multiversed out. And all these different properties in the TV world, the cartoons, like all of these things are kind of existing out here. And if there are no real true repercussions from these Avengers, I think you'll lose everybody, because ultimately what has to happen, I think, at the end of this is like the stuff that we were enjoying, like say the X-Men cartoon, it can't just keep going like this shit didn't happen. Like it's got to start being finality for some of these characters and storylines and Elseworld type stories. And if they don't do that, I just feel like
there's diminishing returns.
Yeah, like you brought up Loki. If they do a multiverse story and Loki just isn't in it that much, or he's, you know what I'm saying, like he's not a centralized figure because of his role in the multiverse, it makes it feel like the rest of the stuff was so cheap. Like, Oh no, the movies are real. This other thing y'all didn't count. And
Yeah.
I don't want them to, I want them to make it all count, but also make it all start finalizing some of this stuff so we can get some definitive um we can trim off the edges of the tree so we can start having new growth, because right now you got people on the hook for what 10-15 years now, and it's time to start passing the torch to some new people.
I think it is so vital and so important that they not only, to your point, involve the I think the Loki story needs to actually be what Doom's situation is about. Loki is holding all of the branches together at the end of time. That's the only way that these branches stay together, and I think Doom is trying to upset that balance for whatever purpose that he's trying to make. Ultimately, what I think this Secret Wars and Doomsday should accomplish is exactly what you said, Rod. I think it should get to the point where you have these worlds die, you lose all of these multiverse heroes and villains alike, and characters that we've seen, and all of that nostalgia that we've gotten a little bit too used to, and eliminate a lot of that and fold everything back into one world with the people who you are going to use going forward after this is over. Because after this is over, the MCU is going to be in a place where the delays of trying to not give these other folks real chances, and by real chances I mean emphasizing their stories, the Shang-Chi's of the world, the Sam Wilsons of the world, and giving them real, not only meaty stories, but stories that are integral to what the MCU should be in the future. I think this should be their end game of that. If it's not, to your point, it is a huge mistake, and it will backfire on them. I think that is why I think they're taking the time, and that's why the delay is what it is, because they ain't got no choice. They got to get this one right. This can't fail. Because if it fails, this is the tipping point. Like, even I'm not one who likes to go into, what a movie loses in terms of money, but there's a reason that Thunderbolts lost some money and whatnot. Even though that was a very good movie in my opinion. I think the biggest issue right now is people lost trust. The trust right now is not there to invest themselves in these MCU stories. So the only way that you do that, it's kind of like when people talk about the face of the NBA and the NBA stuff, just generally speaking. You got to invest in new stars. That's really what it comes down to. If you do not have characters that you can latch onto, there will always be diminishing returns to nostalgia. There will always be diminishing returns to multiverse stories. That's why we are where we are in this situation, because even they have not committed to it 100% in the
You read
way
my
that they
mind.
should have. Because
Well, and
that's
you
how
read.
I feel about good. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Dalvin, if
Well,
you
no,
have
no,
more on it.
you nailed it though, because I think so. For example, like I really liked Eternals, right? I thought Eternals
Mhm.
was really well done. I thought I liked the characters. I was like, oh, I want to see more of them. If Marvel themselves don't trust the audience to be like, yeah, we're gonna build up this world and I'm gonna put these new characters or whatever, and you're gonna because Marvel in the last 5 years has pivoted more, and some of that it has to do with what, like, because I love the NBA analogy. I think the NBA has a problem with their media shitting on the game, and so in turn it
Mhm.
makes it
Yeah.
harder for you to care about the stars, right? Because
Mhm.
they spend all the time saying the game is in a bad place, the game is in a
Yeah.
bad place, all this stuff. Marvel, because I think you have I Marvel has pivoted more in the last 5 years than I think they did the previous decade that we know of, and we know that they've pivoted, right? Because it's very public that they've pivoted, right? And so in turn, if you don't believe in your shit, why on earth am I gonna believe in your shit? Like, if you don't trust the Eternals and Black Knight, and you still can't get Blade off the ground, which to me, like, Ace and AC, I keep coming back to this. I haven't been on social media in like 7 months or something like that. But right before I took my social media break, AC and I were saying, Mahershala's had a couple comments that may lead us to believe Blade's never going to get made. And some dude was like, no, that's crazy. It's going to get made. He's never leaving the film. They unveiled him as the #1 draft pick 5 years ago at Comic-Con, and they still haven't made the damn movie. And the movie's the easiest one to make, I think, in all of the MCU. It's a vampire movie. It's a vampire movie. So if you don't trust your audience that we're gonna vibe with the shit, if you don't, there's no reason for me to show up. And I love Thunderbolts. I thought Thunderbolts was really well done. It dealt with some really deep themes. But I'm always going to show up for a Marvel movie. I love Marvel. I'm always going to be there, right? It's not me who you need to get. It's the folks on the outskirts who are like, oh, I'm a little iffy. I love the point you made about them losing trust, which is why they hit the emergency break glass and brought Downey back. And the Russos, who also need a hit just as bad as Marvel does because their other stuff has been so bad, right? So I'm with you, man. Like I just they didn't trust us with an Eternals 2 because they were like, oh no, people didn't like it too much. It had the first openly gay kiss on it, and that must have been why people didn't flock to it or whatever. And it's like, man, be for real. Show some faith in your source material. Show some faith in it that folks are gonna stick with you to build up these characters. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to something as simple as, oh hey, the Marvels. You have Miss Marvel, you have Kamala Khan, one of your most, I could say, like, energetic, positive, incredibly interesting characters, and you do such a terrible job in trying to throw the movie to the wolves in the sense of not promoting and things along those lines. And you just call it dud instead of putting your arms around the movie and embracing it. I think the same thing is about to happen with Ironheart too. Like, again, if you keep showing people this, guess what? They're not gonna show up. There's no reason for them to, because you prove it in the way that you handle these things, especially when it comes to women and POCs. Like, it just is. It just is what it is. Like,
yes,
I don't know how
you throw Nia DaCosta under the bus, right? Like you throw her under the bus for the Marvels. And mind you, the Marvels in a lot of ways is very much a throwback to the Phase 1 and Phase 2 Marvel movies.
1000%.
In terms of the world building, the post-credit scene is massive. The fights are good. The performances are good. It worked, right? But exactly what you said. Same thing with Ironheart. Ironheart looks very much to me like I'm excited to see that. It reminds me very much of how excited I was to see WandaVision. I'm like, hell yeah, I want to see the story continue. But you're right. They keep doing this to BIPOC folks who are out there championing. And like, it's fucked up, man. It is fucked up. It is fucked up.
And that's and that's where little things like that eventually add up. And this is now years of it adding up and adding up and adding up. That's the thing about dynasties. Dynasties don't fall because of the big thing that happens. It's the little stuff that you don't pay attention to in the margins. And eventually, like, you kind of lose what makes the secret sauce so good. And then, I mean, just as simple as something that I've always said about Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi was a really good movie. Shang-Chi was a character that I think people could definitely get behind. They made the presentation after the movie in that, oh, we are getting him into the Avengers and stuff like that. And you don't see him again until it will be 5 calendar years before we have seen him. I just think that is just malpractice. Just like I think Kamala Khan is malpractice. How do we not see her? How do we not see these people? And even honestly, your Captain America. Your current Captain America, which with a movie that you threw out there, very shoddily, very choppy, and you allowed that movie to get thrown to the wolves too. And eventually, again, it just comes down to what you show me. Because if you keep showing me the same thing, eventually I gotta be like, yo, I gotta call the spade a spade. I gotta believe you. I gotta believe what you're telling me. So what you're telling me is you don't give a shit about these characters, which is fine. But then you're definitely not gonna have the buy-in, and you're definitely not gonna have the investing that you would want from your fans, especially the younger ones, because those are the people who you're trying to get and trying to cultivate, and they've totally missed the boat on these past 4 and 5 years in trying to cultivate new status. That's why we find ourselves talking about the Stranges and all the other stuff. When it comes to something like Spider-Man, the Miles Morales thing, that's gotta happen. you're gonna have to get that one right. Because guess what? If you don't, yo, you are cooked out here, and that's really the truth of the matter.
I love, real quick. I love that you mentioned
Yeah,
the
go
young
ahead, go ahead.
folks, right? Because I was thinking about this, like Rod. If I may, Rod, how old are you?
45. Well, no,
You're
47.
40. You're 47. I just turned
Yeah,
40
this
a
year.
month ago. AC, you're about a year
I'm
older than me.
I will be 39 in
You're a
September.
year younger than me, right? Okay.
Hmm.
So, like, when the first wave of comic book movies came out, we were the young fans, right? Like, because we
Mhm.
grew up with it, right? We grew up with the
Yeah.
cartoons and all that stuff. We were the young fans. I love the point about losing the young. So, like, my daughter is 7. She'll be 7 in August, and she loves Miles Morales because of the cartoon. They call him Spin in the cartoon and Ghost Spidey or whatever. And I'm always
Mhm.
arguing with her, like, no, that's Miles Morales. She said, no, it's Spin. But all her and her friends, they know Miles Morales. They
Hmm.
know Spider Gwen. Peter Parker doesn't mean a damn thing to them. Peter Parker don't mean nothing to them. It's Miles Morales, right? It's Kamala Khan, right? She means something to these young folks, right? It's Girl Hawkeye means something to these young folks.
Right.
Wiccan, Speed, Patriot means something to these young folks because that's the cartoons that they've grown up on, right? And so I'm with you, man. The more diverse their stars should have become. Even Shang-Chi, two doors down from us as an Asian family, they went to see Shang-Chi opening night with their 3
Mhm.
kids.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It meant something to them, right? Whereas maybe the comics hadn't meant anything to them because of anti-Asian sentiment and how bad they botched Iron Fist for a long time and all
Mhm.
that. So I think you're spot on, man. Like if you are not cultivating this next wave of folks that are going to put their butts in seats for your product because you won't invest in the characters they like, then don't be surprised when you're like, oh, this movie only made 180 million. Well, it's like because you told us it sucked. You told us it was going to be terrible.
Right.
Yeah, it's spot on, man.
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult thing to recover from, and that's what I mean by something like Thunderbolts actually being good, but people are just like I don't know.
Mhm.
It's a Marvel movie, and I don't know if these Marvel movies are doing what they're designed to do, and that's why the delays to Doomsday are significant in the sense that, hey man, this is it.
Mhm.
This is it, and I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say that. I think that if this is not the thing that works, then we will see a different type of mode of things going on. So, and I say this in as somebody who wants this to succeed. I
Mhm.
love these stories. I love watching something like The Void and everything that happened with Sentry and the new Avengers. The fact that we get a little joke of interplay between the whole idea of Florence Pugh's Avengers and Mackie's Avengers and what that could be, and something that they could really have a lot of fun playing with if they choose to do so. But you got to make it matter. You got to make it mean something, and I think that's extremely important to the future of what the medium is. Which is why, like, you look at some of the other things that are going on in terms of James Gunn's Superman. Like, I want to see that do great because
Mhm.
that is something that could open up something for DC fans who are looking for a reason to believe in the character again. After what happened with the Snyder stuff, so I think folks are looking for something good, man. That's at the end of the day, that's what people want.
Yep.
People just want good stories. And if you tell good stories, eventually they will come and they will show up. But you also got to care. You got to
Mhm.
play you also can't be on your that's what happens when you become a dynasty. You become an empire. Like you get fat. You feel good, and you don't put in the same effort and same work that you used to in order to get to where you used to be at. So that's such
Well,
a
I think also they just
yeah.
had, because as the Marvel apologist, I have to speak on their
Oh no,
behalf.
feel free.
I
Yes,
think also they just got thrown 3 curveballs that for the
yes.
specific project that they're trying to do compared to everybody else were just like devastating. You get the pandemic, obviously,
Big,
Chadwick
big, big
dying,
hit.
and then of
Yeah,
course Jonathan Majors and his shit. It's like if you want to make it a sports thing, it's like trying to take like the LA Lakers back to the championship after Shaq defects, Kobe gets his sexual assault trial, and the Jason
yeah.
Kidd trade gets rejected. And it's just like, all right, we'll build this back into a it's like it's gonna be a second. We just need to stop and take a breath because this is not working for us right now. And to make another basketball analogy, the
Sure.
MCU for years was run like Coach Tibbs was coaching it, right? It's
Topical.
we got the starters and we're just gonna fucking run their minutes up. Like you're never gonna get a breath. And then when it comes to this phase, Deuce McBride is playing in the game, and they're like, "Whoa, what is Deuce? Who's this guy? What can he do?" You know what I mean? Like we're now at this point where like guys are coming in, and we're like, Tibbs ain't never played Anthony Mackie this many minutes
Oh
before.
man.
Do we have a future at this point? What is this? It's not that these players aren't even good. It's just we don't know them, and it feels like they did try to do some experiments to varying degrees of success. And of course, they had a lot of internal struggles with someone trying
Yes.
to like literally take over the MCU and destroy all the diversity in it. And that just it pisses me off so bad because that is not Kevin Feige's fault or anything. They
No, it's not.
fought to retain what we did get, but they had to
Yeah.
fight while one person was just stabbing them in the back trying to take over this thing. So like the Marvel's bad press is internal stuff. It's just leaks and that it's gonna be bad. The Loki season 2, I'll never forget because we were reviewing it and
Yeah.
it was
we
like
were, yeah.
2 episodes left and it was like it ends terribly. It's trash. How do they move on without Jonathan Majors? And I'm like, really? There's no way to move on in a multiverse saga? There's no way. And then of course when we see it, we all are on the show like, I don't know. It seemed like it'll be fine.
Honestly, it probably seemed like it
Yeah.
ended very well to me.
Yeah, like it was a good ending, and if they want to move on, they can because of how they ended it. So it just they kind of lucked out. If anything, it's like, oh wait, this is a coordinated attack to like take this thing over and take it down and take away all the diversity and stuff. And so I always wonder because when we say we for the MCU for Disney and stuff, we always make it sound like it's one guy in a room.
Right.
But I always wonder, like, how much of a fight is it when you like, because it's a fight to get it created in the first place, right? It's a fight to get She-Hulk. It's a fight to get Miss Marvel. It's a fight to get Echo. And then how much of a fight is it to get it done right? And then how much of it is a fight to get it to be supported? Like how much power do you have to come in the room and be like, guys, we don't want to put this out week to week? Or is it someone going, you guys either drop this shit all at once or we're fucking not gonna make it? Like, I just wonder how that works because they find the willpower sometimes and other times they don't. And even some of the successes, we're just seeing the cracks in the successes. Daredevil, I mean, that shit was 2 shows smushed into one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even with people liking it, it is still what it was. It was still like messed up and then fixed and then put together. Captain America is like feels like 4 movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
like right. So like, did they set Anthony Mackie up or was like shit just fucked up the whole time? And it was like, honestly, this is the most support we've given someone like Anthony Mackie because we wouldn't spend a bunch more money to refilm it and reshoot it and cut it and put it out and try to like make it sound like it's not a turd, but like we kind of fucked that one off, you know? So I just wonder how those curveballs have affected the MCU and if maybe the realistic expectation is to be like, well, they're not going to be back to where they were. That's off the table. But some semblance of like good movies once out of every 2 or 3 times might be where we need to start shifting our focus to like, that's what it is.
Right.
And then the last thing I'll say is because if we really go back and look from the jump, it was kind of always that. Like it was like people, we have rose-colored glasses to make it seem like all the old shit was just, man, remember when it was fire? And it's like, I remember there being like Hulk movies that I don't know if they counted. I remember
the Dark World.
I remember the Dark World. You know what I'm saying? Some of the movies I liked, I still remember some of the reception to them at the time where people being like, I don't know about that one, dog. So like in hindsight, we go back and we're like, nah, it was great. But I loved Iron Man 3, but I remember not liking it when I saw it in the theater. Like I walked out the theater and was like, fuck that bullshit. And then
Very
like,
famous thing with me and Iron Man 3 on this show.
yeah, so
In
like,
the
Yes,
past. Yeah.
yes.
right. So we all look back now like, man, they were killing it for 10 years in a row. It's like, no, they weren't, and they aren't now either. We're just micro analyzing every decision as it gets bigger.
Yeah.
So that's what I think
I
they're up
think
against.
I think the other point, Rod, you nailed it about the media. I love the basketball analogy because, like, again, as a Mavs fan, I have had to live through Mark Cuban saying he doesn't like AAU basketball. Translation meaning he don't want any black people balling for the Mavs. That's essentially what he's saying. So, like, again,
Essentially.
so I'm like, okay, you're Bob Iger, like that's you.
Right.
You don't know anybody that look like me. But there is the part about the media piece that I think is big because you're right. Like we know so much more now about how messed up these movies are, like in terms of like what goes wrong. Because you mentioned the three things: the pandemic, the majors thing, Chadwick passing. They had the writer's strike too.
Yep.
Right. The world changed. Remember, the original Brave New World was New World Order, and it had like a terrorist cell or whatever, and they were like, no, we can't do this, and they had to change Ruth into a de facto Black Widow, could play by anybody, and instead of making her an Israeli IDF war soldier.
But for a second before you continue.
Yes.
What use did that character have in that movie? There was no reason for it.
Yeah.
It's so insane to me.
It was so weird.
It looked
as
like
a casting choice too, because I was like, she don't even got the charisma to pull off what y'all thought y'all were gonna do. It was a very weird decision.
Like, think about how much better that movie would have been if you would have just put Sharon Carter in that role.
Yes.
Like, again, like a pardoned Sharon Carter as the liaison between the president
and if you'll remember, Falcon and the Winter Soldier had some type of disease pandemic storyline that they take out.
That they couldn't
like they just got hit with some haymakers, dog.
Secret Invasion had the same problem too. They were supposed to do something. Yes.
With a bioweapon, right? Like, and they had to change it.
Exactly.
So I'll tell you, man, Anthony Mackie really can't catch a break. That's why he always looks like he knows all the secrets, man. Because like I'm sure they told them, like, yo, so look, we're gonna make you Cap. But some shit's gonna go wrong. However, you being rejected for credit isn't the worst thing that's gonna happen to you in this run.
That's what his face is. His face is really saying, man, if y'all knew what's happening behind the scenes of these movies, y'all wouldn't even be on me like this, boy.
Oh God!
But the media's role is I think that's the one that I think we know so much more now. We know everybody. Again, it's funny because like AC, you mentioned your reaction to Thor: The Dark. I want you to think about this, man. To Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 came out about maybe 12, 13 years ago, maybe 14 years ago.
2013.
Right? Yeah, so 12 years. Think about that, right? And 12 years ago, you guys, and again, 12 years ago, you were the best Marvel podcast. You still are, right? But 12 years ago, like there wasn't like 90,000 podcasts where they're telling you like, hey, I spoke to this source who DM'd me this picture of Robert Downey Jr. doing a line off of Scarlett Johansson. It's crazy what's going on in Iron Man 2, right? Like so all these, we get so much more. Like like I want you to think about Brave New World. Like they paid for Harrison Ford to be Red Hulk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like paid for Giancarlo Esposito. Like they put money into that movie, star power to make that movie. But again, it's Anthony Mackie. He got dealt a bad hand. I think the media has not been helping matters because we know so much more. The Loki thing. Last thing I'll say, the Loki thing you mentioned, Rob, was key because even before, remember we got together for episode 6. That week they come out and they're like, I don't know how they're going to survive this ending. Like I don't know how they're going to survive without Jonathan Majors. Then exactly what you said. Then we get to it and it's like, what?
Right. And they had to deal with 2 weeks of just media fallout between the finale, and there's just no way to land the plane. Because at that point, when you land the plane, it's relief. It's not celebration and like jubilation. Like, what a great show! Wow, I can't believe they did it. Instead, it's like, that was weird. We had some turbulence, but it seems like everything was fine, right? That's how. And I'm just like that. Anyway, those machinations hurt them in a way that they can't really control at this point. And so, obviously they're never going to get anything perfect. They're going to make mistakes, blah, blah, blah. All the companies will, but there's just these there's a way where almost like how the Lakers or the Cowboys are, where they were winning all those championships in the 90s, where it's just like, Yeah, but don't we all kind of want to see him lose? And it's like, well, this is entertainment, not sports. So I don't know why we don't get
Yeah.
anything out of Marvel making bad movies or not enjoying our time at the theater. So I'm always rooting for them to figure a way out around all the things they're dealing with.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you mentioned that. I have found myself very consistent on when it comes to the coverage of the stuff. I just think a lot of people are just trying to get in there with their takes, and they just gonna say the first thing that comes to mind. We saw the Marvels get hate bombed. We're seeing Ironheart get hate bombed. And it looks like these studios are either capitulating to these people or kind of trying to work around them in a way that doesn't directly attack them.
Right.
Um, which should be, to me, the model that you go after,
Mm.
as opposed to, like, if you give these people power, they will take it.
Yeah.
And they've given it's just similar to Star Wars and the Acolyte and everything that happened with that.
Well,
It's
it feels
it's
like
no
for me, it feels
yeah.
like they're saying they're doing that thing that sometimes a good ally will try to do, and they don't
Hmm.
understand. But they do that thing where they're like, "No, we're just not going to pay attention to those haters, okay?
Yeah.
We're gonna because it's not like they stopped doing the work. Like you look at the slate of who they support, the money they put behind projects, and it's
Yeah.
blackity black, brownity brown, womany woman. Like you just look up and down the roster, and they're always promoting some shit. So you know that their heart's in the right place or they're doing the right
Yes.
things. But then you're like, to me, to all of us being being people of color, we're all like, no, you punched the motherfucker in the mouth and then
Yes,
they'll leave you
exactly.
alone. That's how it always works. It doesn't work with the like, I'm above this. I will just go to my locker and let you spit on me. No, you turn around, sock
When they
them.
go low, we go high.
Yeah, like it doesn't work. And so I agree with you in that I would like to see more fight out of the studio from their talking like headpieces and all that stuff. They just seem so afraid to rock the boat in that area. And I think that, the country kind of informed them that maybe you don't rock the boat. That like
Yeah.
corporations are not brave they're not people, regardless of what the Supreme Court says, and they're not brave in general. Like corporations are kind of like, all right, so the temperature of the country is 60 degrees, then we need to make 60-degree movies. And that feels like what Disney has and Marvel have decided to do in this climate is like, we'll just keep making all the black shit. We're just not going to call it black shit. So we don't have to worry about this. They're gonna give the bag to Ryan Coogler. They're gonna like Black Panther 3, like this. They're not going. Denzel's supposed to be in Black Panther 3. They're clearly
Right.
they picked a side. They just are the
Yeah.
I don't see color as like side with us.
Yeah. Nah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think this was a great detour. I do want to close with this because this was a Doctor Strange themed episode.
Mm.
I if I could get either of your either opinion or thought on so, Doctor Strange as a character, do we ultimately think he will be involved, heavily involved in this Doomsday movie? Or perhaps, with the lack of an announcement, will they hold him back for Secret Wars? Dalbin, I'll start with you.
I am going to say that he's not in Doomsday
Okay.
until the end credit scene. I think
Okay.
I think Doctor Strange 3 takes one of those slots. We find out that he's essentially in the dark dimension handling business because he has to deal with that. But I think he's definitely in Secret Wars. I think he's the protagonist. I think he's
Mm.
the foil to Doctor Doom. But
Mm.
I do not think he's in Doomsday. No.
Mm.
Okay. Okay. And how about you, Rod?
I like Dalvin's idea, honestly, man. I think that would jive. And like I said, if he's in it, you almost have to do something to him right away to show that Doom is just that dude. And I'm not saying you gotta like definitively kill him, but like you gotta do something to make people be like, oh damn,
Yeah, you got
it's
cripple his ass.
yeah, it's real. You know what I'm saying? Like just like whether you cast him out of a dimension or you just smack him down. I also like there's a version of Doom that's like a sorcerer supreme himself. Like when he started combining like magic instead of fucking sci-fi tech. So like you could go a bunch of ways with this Doom. Anyway, if he's in there, I just think he should be there
Yeah.
to raise the stakes, not he's like they should not start off on equal footing with it being like Doom versus Strange. That first movie needs to be a bum rush of Doom,
A dominant
just
Doom.
L after L after L, like more than Thanos. Like it's got to be like this man destroys people's planets and just he don't give a fuck, and no one knows what to do with this dude. And we need to feel Doom. We need to feel that feeling of impending doom whenever we see our
Yes.
favorite characters on screen. And if they can do that for a whole movie, then I feel like they'll be on good footing to then give us the Doctor Strange, like, yo, so I got a plan. It's fucking crazy. This is what we got to do to fight this dude.
Very well said. Very well said. And just as far as I'm concerned, I to Dalbin's point, I do think even if he isn't in the movie, I do think like maybe just kind of like a little tease or something like that would be totally fine. I think there are so many characters to work with, and I also think that you do want to establish your ground level Avengers, the new Avengers and Mackey's Avengers. Like you want to see them new folks get busy because we
Yeah.
haven't seen them get busy at all
You
together.
know what would be a
So,
dope post credit scene is, and it could
mhm,
be super short, just the fucking portal. Like not even him coming
yeah,
through it. Just we've watched everybody get their ass whooped for 2.5 hours. We are all sad. We're walking out the theater like, what the fuck was
mhm,
that? And then just the hope is just that portal, and we're like, oh shit, they got Doctor Strange too. Forgot
yeah.
about that dude. And we'll see you guys in a couple years, or whatever.
Yeah, that would be perfect. So yeah, Strange is a character that we'll be keeping an eye out for. As far as Road to Doomsday is, the next thing that we will cover will be street level characters. That's gonna be a lot of fun because it seems like Daredevil is cooking some stuff up with some of the returns. Seems like we're getting the band back together. So I want to talk about that in our next episode, and looking forward to do that. But in the meantime, I want to thank my guests for joining me this evening. First, Rod, as always, much love, brother, and thank you for joining.
Yes, sir.
Let the good people know where we can find you and follow you, sir.
You can find me, the Black Guy Who Tips, everywhere you get podcasts. Just search the Black Guy Who Tips. If you're on social media and you want to play a racist game, go to Guess the Race game on Instagram. It's very fun. Yeah, thanks for having me. If you ever need me, I'll be chilling with Finn Jones and Jessica Jones and Mike Coulter, and we'll be hanging out.
Oh man, that's I'm looking forward to talking about that. And Dalbean, of course, pleasure having you back on, and we'll be having you back on, soon. You'll be part of this street level thing, and we'll talk about everything else further. But thank you for joining us, sir. And where can we find you, my friend?
Absolutely no, and I'm always one call away, like Chingy, my friends. You just gotta just but super glad to be back with you guys, man. You guys can follow me again. I am taking a social media break, but I'm still checking like to see if I get a new follower. So at Dalvin, at DA_Osorio on Twitter and at Dalvin Osorio on Instagram. However, if I don't know you, I will not accept your friend request. Rod and AC are my friends there because they're my friends in real life. If I don't know you, you will not be accepted. But no, super glad to be back with you guys. Super excited to talk street level. And shout out to our guy Caleb, who has only seen one scene from Luke Cage, and it just so happened to be where Jessica Jones is getting rearranged like some furniture.
Oh
But
man. You
Yeah,
what? That's better than what I thought you were gonna say. I thought you saw the dab.
Caleb Lambmesser, forever the milkman. Forever the milkman. So just so you know, Caleb, when you get to this end part, I made sure to call you the milkman. So with that being said, you can follow me on Twitter at Anthony Canton_3. Follow the show on all platforms at MC University Pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Patreon. And we'll be getting back with it with this Road to Doomsday thing. Thank you for all for listening, supporting, and watching. So for Rob Morrow and Dalbin Osorio, I'm Anthony Canton III. This has been Marvel Cinematic University, and we'll talk to you next time on the Road to Doomsday.